It's good to be with you this morning as we remember St. Cajetan. His name is not pronounced Cajun. Some people think that. But anyway, it's actually an anglicized, which means it's an English version of an Italian name. Okay, so just keeping that in mind. And so we won't talk too much about him. We'll focus on the readings today, which are very rich in content and meaning. So we read from Jeremiah, and this reading it doesn't really describe a lot as we hear it, but there is a lot here. It's talking about the reconstitution of the people there after the Babylonian exile, right? The people are brought home, they're brought back, the remnant returns, and so these images of joy and celebration, of restoration, such as dancing in the streets, that they mentioned all that stuff, all that has to do with being restored, with the people being restored to their homeland. And as it says at the end very clearly, the Lord has delivered, you could also say redeemed, his people, the remnant of Israel. And so the return after the exile has always been in the works of the fathers of the church, right? These early Christian witnesses, an image of the redemption, right? What the redemption has accomplished of our salvation, but also of our journey to heaven, right? That we are being brought back, delivered for the sake of returning to heaven, or getting to heaven ultimately through the grace that is won through Christ's passion and death. And so the restoration that Israel experienced was really kind of short-lived in some ways, because they continued historically to have more and more turmoil. The temple in Jerusalem would end up being destroyed two times in their history, right? And so as we hear this reading, we want to remember is that what happened to ancient Israel is an imperfect prediction or image of what will be fulfilled spiritually in the church that Jesus founds. Yet it is an image, right? The fulfillment is so much greater than that which precedes it. Just like, for example, if we all were to find ourselves, say, in before the tabernacle of the Lord, right, in the Ark of the Covenant, all those things, that would be very impressive. It should make an impression on us. But compare that to the Blessed Virgin Mary, right, who has the Word of life, who has, the lawgiver, God himself, in her womb. And so just to realize again that these things point forward, but they do not fulfill. It is only in Christ that these things are truly accomplished in their full meaning that God has for us. And that connects a bit with our gospel today as we hear about this Canaanite woman and her daughter. And this is such an interesting story, I think, that tells us a lot about what Jesus is doing. One of the things you have to remember as you read the gospel, read the Gospels, read the New Testament, is that they are works of faith, right? Is that the stories that are selected, the content that is included, is reflective of the faith of those who created it, right? Well, it makes sense, right? Because there's a reason for each of these selections. And so as we encounter them, we can ask ourselves, what is God trying to teach me through this sacred, this writing, through the works of the sacred author, all those kind of things. So what is Matthew saying in our gospel today? Well, Matthew is a Jew, and he's talking about here this Canaanite woman is not a Jew, right? She would be considered a Gentile. And her daughter, she describes as being possessed. Maybe some of you will be, oh, that's my daughter. Okay, I'm kidding there. Maybe some of you feel the same way about your grandchildren, that they're possessed, And anyway, having said that, it's almost kind of an upsetting thing to read, right? Because Jesus doesn't answer her, as if he's ignoring her. And then the disciples even interpret this as he's just not dealing with it. And so then as you read the text, he does respond. He does respond to her and says that he was sent only to Israel, which is kind of like a way of putting himself in continuity with the mission of the prophets, right? Of the other prophets, that he is there to guide the chosen people. And then as we go through this, right, there's been different explanations. Some people will say, well, the word that Jesus uses for, it is not right to take the food of the children of Israel and throw it to the Gentiles, the dogs. The word means little puppies, whatever. You could say that maybe. But ultimately, the whole point of this is he is looking for an expression of faith. And often in these encounters that Christ has with people, he accepts them as where they are, but then he encourages them to grow, to go beyond that moment. Because then she calls him Lord, right? Domine. She calls him Lord, and then he exclaims, how great is your faith, and then grants what she asked. And I think that this reminds me that we're called to accept people in a certain sense where they're at, to meet them where they're at, but not to be done with them there. We're called to, in our mission of evangelization, whatever form that mission takes for you personally, to encourage people gently as the Lord calls us to and as we discern. But we don't stay there. We don't stay there. In my hospital ministry, if I come into someone's room and then I say, okay, I'm Father James, all that stuff, and I say, so when was the last time you got into confession? It's been 20 years, whatever. Great. I'm not going to leave them there, I'm not going to do that. That's not really serving them. I'm going to maybe poke a little bit. Is there a reason? Why aren't we celebrating our faith? Do we know what the sacraments are? Are you asking for a sacrament? Things like that. So just kind of take this reading, I think, as a model for evangelization. The Lord wants us to invite others into the grace of this covenant of what he has done, and we do that with gentleness, but we do that. We want to inspire, we want to invite others into this work that God is doing in our lives.